This is Michael Popok. It's very dark, so it must be Legal AF After Dark. And now we're going to talk about the United States Supreme Court. We got President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris talking about how to reform and remediate all the problems we've been observing and the ethics problems and challenges of the United States Supreme Court. In the middle of all of this, while they're talking about expanding the court, adding a code of ethics, having term limits for Supreme Court justices, what do we got? A new leak. A new leak related to what else? A woman's right to choose and abortion rights that's come out, and a threat of more leaks to come. John Roberts has lost complete control of that court. We talk about it all on Legal AF, the podcast. Take a listen. So let me just turn this next over to you by just framing it this way. Several months ago, well, actually it's in June, we had a decision that even though we thought it was a weird collection of voting and concurring opinions and dissenting opinions or whatever it was, we got this decision that seemed to allow, at least for temporarily for now, the Biden administration position that EMTALA, the Emergency Medical Labor Act and all, which required that a medical provider provide an abortion in case of the health reasons about the mother or life or death about the mother, and that EMTALA, especially for hospitals that took federal aid, Medicare, Medicaid, that kind of thing, or other federal funding, which they all do, that they would have to, a doctor, even in a state like Idaho, that had a near total ban on abortion, under EMTALA, they would have to give the abortion if the life of the mother was in danger, was at risk. And that was one of the ways that President Joe Biden, he'll go down in history as one of our greatest presidents, I am sure, he was able to, with executive law, after he ordered, let me just talk about how this happens. He ordered all federal agencies and heads of his federal agencies to comb through all regulations under their remit and come up with things that he could do without congressional action because of the do-nothing Congress, the do-nothing MAGA Congress that he's been shackled with for the last 2 years or more, and come up with ways through executive order or interpretations of existing regulations on the books that he could help women and elevate them from second-class citizens that don't have the right over their own bodies and try to put back a measure of reproductive rights and autonomy over women. One of the ways they came up with was EMTALA. And this, we got a ruling. It was a per curiam. There was not really like a majority opinion. There was all these concurrences. We're like, what is going on with this decision? And now we got a leak that's happened yet again. Let me just leave it this way. I've been a lawyer for 33 years. I studied law from 88 to 91 at a pretty good university, pretty good law school. Okay. And I've been following the law and a student of the law ever since. We've had books written. This is different. We've had books written like The Brethren and some other books by Jeffrey Toobin about the Supreme Court that like 2, 3, 5, 10 years after a decision talk about some insider things that happened, right? Like the clerks would talk to the reporters or the journalists and we get, oh, that's what happened 10 years ago. But in real time, in the same term, a leak? Never. And we had it during the Dobbs decision, which was actually in draft leaked. And now we have it again about what happened in Idaho. Talk about that. What do we think it means? Who do we think the leaker is? Do we think more leaks are coming? And what does it mean for what Joe Biden's trying to do from now until January 20th at 11:59 a.m. and what it means for Kamala Harris moving forward in terms of her presidency and as they address this third co-equal branch of government?
I don't think we can overstate the palace intrigue with these leaks. Like you said, for us lawyers, this is huge. We saw the leak with Dobbs. This leak, evidently, the leaker is saying there's a lot more leaks coming. I think this is a reflection. I mean, there's so much outside the Supreme Court. We're seeing, right, the violations of the ethics with Justice Alito and Justice Thomas, and we're seeing them overturn precedent with Dobbs and with this absolute immunity decision. But now that you can see basically the infighting, I think, of the Supreme Court with these leaks. There's definitely one or more than one people there that are kind of attacking it from the inside, because these leaks are not good for the court. This particular leak, interesting, and it's interesting, like you say, so far it's all been about abortion, which, as we know, like that's a big issue for Justice Alito. So this latest leak, they decided after hearing the oral arguments that they were going to decide 6-3 to basically allow Idaho to continue not to give life-saving care to women and not give the abortion. And then the Chief Justice did an interesting thing, which is not assign a draft. Was it because he was worried about a Dobbs leak? Maybe. And then during their private negotiations, they changed their mind. And instead of ruling on the merits, they did this procedural decision that kind of punted the decision. So for now, it's like status quo and it's punting it. It's probably going to come down later. And so leaking these private discussions that showed that Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Roberts were the ones who went from kind of upholding the strict Idaho abortion ban to punting it later. I think it's probably their way of trying to put pressure maybe on those two justices to get in line. I imagine they're going to be hearing from the Leonard Leos and the Heritage Foundations of the world, but we don't really know, right? This is where the palace intrigue is. We don't really know. What we know, though, is Chief Justice Roberts is rapidly losing control of his court. We saw it with the opinions. This latest absolute immunity opinion is something I think Justice Roberts never would have wanted to do. I think he put his name on it in order to try to show some semblance that he has control of the court. And now with these leaks, he's losing practical control of the court. And the interesting thing is when they did their investigation over the Dobbs leak, everybody was interviewed under penalty of perjury, under oath, except for the 9 justices, because they like to put themselves above the law like everyone else. No wonder they didn't find the leaker. So it'll be interesting to see what Chief Justice Roberts do. How serious is he about finding the leaker? Will he bring in somebody from the outside? Will he make the justices go under oath? What is he going to do to prevent future leaks? Because according to this leaker, it's going to keep coming. So between what the Biden-Harris administration is planning on doing in terms of the enforceable ethics code, what AOC just did with her impeachment articles, I did a video on that here for MeidasTouch. It's astounding, that impeachment filing here, seeing everything all in one document. It was so thorough. We're getting a shift here. Republicans for a long time emphasized the court. We are catching up. I think we're catching up rapidly. And I do think this is going to be a very interesting time for the court, between the leakers and the new ethics enforcement and all of the cases they have coming on. Can Chief Justice Roberts get this under control, or will he finally realize he needs to do something? That will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think Joe Biden and when Kamala becomes president, they're going to have to do the things that they can do without a constitutional amendment. Court packing is one of them. The Constitution doesn't require a number of justices. We just kind of settled on 9 eventually. And so it can be done in other ways. It's not through a presidential act. Of course, the Supreme Court will have something to say about it. They always try to get involved with their own power and authority. But, expanding the court would be nice. Term limits, I like that idea. And then things like having an independent counsel that's baked into the Constitution, that will require a constitutional amendment. I normally would say maybe we need another constitutional convention. Maybe we need to get together as a people with the right people in charge and figure out how to amend certain aspects of the Constitution. It hasn't been amended for a long, long time. When the Equal Rights Amendment died a slow death, there's an argument that it passed, but there's the fact that an Equal Rights Amendment to make women equal to men could not get passed in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even through to today tells you something. But we're going to follow it all that Supreme Court stuff, what happens with the new administration, and right here on the MeidasTouch Network. Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics on the MeidasTouch Network, so you don't have to. We curate the top 4 or 5 stories at the intersection, and we bring it to you the only way we know how, without blowing smoke or sunshine. We're unplugged. we're unfiltered. Sometimes we're unhinged about our progressive brand of democracy. We call it like we see it. We're lawyers who talk about things that they know what they're talking about at the intersection of law and politics, right here on the MeidasTouch Network. Take that clip, help us grow. We're growing by word of mouth. We don't have outside investors. We don't have a marketing department. Take the clip and ask your friends and family to join us. That's what we're down to. Help us get to 3 million. It's free. I said free subscribers before the November election. And if you don't know about Legal AF, that's a clip. Join us on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on this YouTube channel for the MeidasTouch Network and everywhere you get your audio podcast from. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.